hapa tunakuladi mpishi. Bora tushibe, mwiko refu tunafungadi mshipi. Bora tupike, kamba ya buta unaweza gongewa. Hauna mbota na bado timing unatolewa. Bora mpishi jumpishi bora shaolewa. Easy but niko easy ganji kitolewa.
Baby don't touch me there, me gonna wake you in the air. I me say touch me there, sugar down low find me there. Hakuna cha reverse nikisha kanyaga zini, I'm always on time. Hakuna zimefit kwenye nginyo ni magrin, feeling really high. I'm feeling best, take it really nice. I'm really best, take it you cannot deny. Feeling really high. Many bambas, many fika di kwa toes. Tell me your number, gonna pay a kaki calls. Likunisha ndenka jipata nimedoze. Sijuna deli hini dawa hini dose. Spirit iko so high, wase shusha walai. Baby don't be so shy, t-shirt Kenya na die. Feeling really high, kila kitu alright, Baby don't touch me there, me gonna wake you in the air. I me say touch me there, sugar down low find me there. Hakuna cha reverse nikisha kanyaga zini, I'm always on time. Hakuna zimefit kwenye nginyo ni magrin, feeling really high. I'm feeling best, take it really nice. I'm really best, take it you cannot deny. Feeling really high. And I know kumedi bas mi do medicine. Na doba zangu kwa keni therapy. Mzimbe think, na kutibu from within. A win is a win, nikisha kanyaga sin. Mukhana nice and lovely, sweet and sexy girl. Won't you catch a wine for me? And take me back to December. Ukipuliza kipenga, imeti wendo referee. Ashifula, pomekuza mulima. Anainama, anainuka. Atuti dedili sudika. Hakuna cha reverse, nikisha kanyaga zina. I'm always on time. Hakuna zimefit kwenye nginyo ni magrin. Feeling really high. I'm feeling best, take it really nice. I'm really best, take it you cannot deny. Feeling really high.
DJ Gabu, ID teacher, teach them teacher. Kati Entertainment.
Coming right back till the morning. Come me selector, come play the selection. Then I like till the morning. Come me DJ, come chat on the version. Coming right back till the morning. Come play this, come mix it, we jump and twist. Play the drum and bass, make me wind up the waist. Play calypso, make me dance like go-go. Play the funky, make me jump like monkey. Head up and roll if you no play some soul. Want a good selector and control. Mix the music like you're in the studio. Make people come and don't want to go. So come me selector, play the selection. In a light till the morning. Come me DJ, come chat on the version. Tell me right back till the morning. Come people make me jam up the session. In a light till the morning. Come the girl make me rock this a one. We doing right back till the morning. Oh, hey, hey. So rum down style. Rum down style. Tell you them my style kinda wicked and wild. Tell you them my style kinda well versatile. You say all who dance sit down already, and all who they are better sit down steady. Like how this selector select wisely. Me like how me girl just a couple nicely. So select.
Put your motherfucking hands up, girl in a bikini. Everybody got a red cup in a the pool party, oh, like a scene from a movie, starring everybody. Oh, 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 oh. A Miami Vice episode. We a star and a feel we show. Hey girl, I wanna give you more. Girl, it's forever, if you wanna. It's forever, if you wanna. Pretty girls at the pool all day. Beach ball for the ladies play. We have a bar beside the DJ and a one-class clown, you know the cliche. Me feel nice, me spliff drop. Inna the drizzle, I get the gift wrap. So me pull out the next one, like CJ Rush remix that. A Miami Vice episode.
AI is changing the game for app development. Firebase is here to help. Easily build AI.
We are star and a feel we show.
Hey y'all, this is Selena Njuki, the brown gal, brown that is a doctor, and you're hanging out with the DJ Gabu, the teacher. Take it away.
Broke it up all night. Evidence living on a feel nice. Si ongage ya wadan kisemeli rain twice. Mra, must be nice. Nabadilisha jina tu Hadija Kopa. Wild boss, ni mimi ndo nafaa kukopa. This yesterday forms I'm a window shopper. Vitu nina baizi kwa zimejaza commas. Mra, na hotline playing another ya meteveva. Tabidi umejileta. Namkamatia chini my guy, see you later. From ya leo ni kukesha. Get busy with the girl, get busy with the girl. Jua asante kujileta. Get busy with the girl, get busy with the girl. Jua asante kujileta.
Very super na kazi ya kuingia na exit. Nateleza na wote niko na payslip LT na wageuza mandom na kurura na watu pia lugha tufanye water stepping juzi na chombo kuongeza mchuzi na neza kanyagia riba zote za juzi na meta za ujuzi babli kajakuzi na tafadhali usitupangie harusi njipi bado kisleki get busy nko busy na my lady kwa rodoko oni inko ja umandei kuna msamengia na jili na mekata kredi kulima karudi home na matunda 16 ni beshte ya misi kensekiwa na mling mashoro meshaona kuredi kureceive through pasarif mrazi delete
Nina hotline playing another ya meteveva. Itabidi umejileta. Namkamatia chini my guy, see you later. From ya leo ni kukesha. Get busy with the girl, get busy with the girl. Jua asante kujileta. Get busy with the girl, get busy with the girl. Jua asante kujileta. Nina hotline playing another ya meteveva. Itabidi umejileta. Namkamatia chini my guy, see you later. From ya leo ni kukesha. Get busy with the girl, get busy with the girl. Jua asante kujileta. Get busy with the girl, get busy with the girl. Jua asante kujileta.
Martin, girl, I wanna fit in your pocket. Them call me out of work.
Grandmaster techniques.
Hapo meguso zibadilishe. Umegusa penyewe. Are you waiting? Girl, I like it. Raise up your body, pani dava. Girl, your body nice and proper. Come back it up, pani dandada. So me say big up. But I know that's how we did. Girl, from you ready, then you know me ready. Me book your last night and you feel me today. Girl, back it up, pani dana. Rocky said it. Your body attack. People a look, come me go in at the dark. Chesa na mi, ni kupe una tota. Yo poni fati na jeans, me can't wait to take it off. Yeah. Hapo kwetu kila siku holiday. Yeah. Hapo meguso zibadilishe. Umegusa penyewe. Are you waiting? Girl, I like it. Raise up your body, pani dava. Girl, your body nice and proper.
Kati Entertainment.
Niko na binti na kametunga mini na kanadudha pombe matinti na kanadunda sianda madongdem anadudha niko na binti na kametunga mini na kanadudha pombe matinti na kanadunda sianda madongdem anadudha niko na guza jegi alafu guza dudha unaweza dhani somje tumelipuka confirm guza jegi alafu guza dudha unaweza dhani somje tumelipuka confirm guza 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 guza.
Haga boli ya pepa, nkiona naipepeta. Kama utesi unateseka, hamnipei sheria nachukua mkononi. Tuko maziwa kama ngozi ya mkoloni. Guza guza naiguza nalia aki. Hana mtu kila siku akoza. Guza guza majuto mchukua neza juta. Geuza gwethe ujibebe mpaka alu.
Niko na binti na kamedunga mini na kanadudha. Kombe matinti na kanadunda. Sianda madong dem anadudha. Niko na binti na kamedunga mini na kanadudha. Kombe matinti na kanadunda. Sianda madong dem anadudha. Niko na binti na kamedunga mini.
Oh yeah, kutoka alo. Nilikutana naye Kilimani, Nairobi 2015. Kibaridi cha asubuhi, kijua fani sio kikali saa 5. Oh Nairobi 2015. Nikamchagua yeye katikati ya wenzake watano. Nikamuomba kanio.
It takes courage to embrace your extraordinary. Burberry Hero, the new parfum intense.
Namba, moyoni Mungu nikampa moja. She's my number moja. Nikamuomba kaniomba namba. Moyoni wangu nikampa moja. Now she's my number moja. Yani namaanisha kwamba ndo tushawana. Tushawana. Ndo tushawana. Ndo tushawana. Tulipatana Bongo, Mikocheni, kwa zangu bichi nalo pepo wa bahari. Alinipita kama meli, anayumba yumba akidondosa kishenzi. Oh Mikocheni, kamfuata utadhani zombie. Habari gani bona ukoloni, jina ni gani akasema Zari. Nikamwambia aje, kamwambia kwangu ni kwake. Nimshike wapi ndio aje, taka moyo wangu we wake. Watangoja sana, wakidhania tutakutana. Mina yeye tumeshaivana, na ichapo siku na mchana. Yani namaanisha kwamba ndio tushawana. Na yeye sami tunaye tushawana. Sawana na yeye sami tunaye tushawana. Leo nimegundua utofauti kati ya raha na furaha. Do you know that? Hii dunia ina mambo, eti kumbe kuna utofauti kati ya raha na furaha. Kale ka distance, baby sikuoni, eti nikajonanisha muvuoni. Utadhani na enjoy, pombe zimenichosha nivohoi. Dunia ina siri, so kila anakulala moyoni mwake na furaha. Lord of mercy, nishagundua furaha yangu ni wewe. Ule nilipata raha ila nikagundua furaha yangu ni wewe. Kwa wengine nitajisumbua, furaha yangu ni wewe. Hata siku nikifa naomba unizike wewe. Amina wewe.
Is none other than DJ Gabu Adi Teacher, representing Representing Kati Kati Entertainment.
I did my own, you dey shake your nyashi for where I dey drink okokoro. I dey for river, they casting my net, you decide to show your pololo. Waiting I don't do for you, now waiting you want, I dey do it times two. Mana, emere no me for choco, they love for piri. Na 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 na. Nyashi na nyashi, nyashi na nyashi, nyashi na nyashi oh. Buresi oh, whether big or small oh. Nyashi na nyashi, nyashi na nyashi, sitirechi makisi oh. Sitirechi makisi oh, it enter my eyes oh. Shaking na your glory, shaky we are. Shaking na your glory, shaky we are. Shaking na your glory, shaky we are. Shaking na your glory.
Sitirechi mark is my favorite item, no low. Oh. I never dropped since I see you last week. Give me that thing, your medicine I gone in. Yash na yash, but in different sizing. No be today, everybody knows what I like. Waiting I know do for you, everything you want, I go pay times two. You should know everything I do, anything I buy, I go buy for two.
Nyashi na nyashi, nyashi na nyashi, nyashi na nyashi oh. Buresi oh.
DJ Gabu, ID teacher, teach them teacher.
Nyashi pite boss kwani nini nugu. Sikosi nguvu baby girl mi ukula njugu. Bad to the bone lazima nikunywe supu. Shake that thing hadi upigwe marufuku. Kaende kifo cha mende. Unaninyonya kama maembe na tembe. Game bubu vitu zetu usiseme. Wacha wabaki wakidhani kuna venye. Peleka juu, peleka chini. Usiogope kuu, rarua mini. Ikishika sana, toa ulimi. Zako zikipanda, cheza na mimi. Five-star hotel kwetu ni Gaza. Naroga ka vibes katel niko na answer. Uko na swali naeza tell bombastic side eye. Shavuka boda napiga Ethiopia. Kani for 20 tupate tukichoma. Pigi ya pedi ya kuje na keroma. Hizi mamoshi zinatibu mpaka homa. Mademu wanapaka hina na ma foundation. Wanasema right now to my location. Wanajua sindo huanga na formation. Mpesa confirmation leo celebration. Tuko area.
Rizzo. Oh baby wine. Me I want to fire, make we fire, they go high. And if you want to look, make we look, they go high. Baby, don't be shy. Oh baby wine. Me I want to fire, make we fire, they go high. And if you want to look, make we look, they go high. Baby, don't be shy. She feel like sex to me. Tell me what you put in your recipe, oh boy. You bring out the best in me. I'm on me plus you, see my destiny. So baby, be my fine mamacita. At the end of the day, you know say me not bad man. We see what I've designed. Too clear for my face and I got with the design. See, I don't see signs. All I see is you, mommy, you too good. Your win and my win, no play. Whenever bad man chilling next to you. It be like say I dey lose my cool. Slow pace, baby girl, no rush. To buy for a looking and not so low. By the time it's sunrise, me I'm okay. But baby wine, baby wine, baby wine, baby wine, baby wine. Me I want to fire, make we fire, they go high. And if you want to look, make we look, they go high. Baby, don't be shy. Oh baby wine, baby wine, baby wine, baby wine, baby wine. Me I want to fire, make we fire, they go high. And if you want to look, make we look, they go high. Baby, don't be shy.
Baby, let me redefine sexy. Shake your body, mete dança lá BR. Se apaixona não, cause I'm a bad bitch. Cê vem com os papos todos que eu mando sete. Viciante igual Nutella. Vai botar uma foto minha na tua tela. Crazy, crazy love. Show me what you do no meu fã. Ele pede pra mamacita. Esse movimento lento excita. Cê me pede certinho, até brinco com a ponta da língua. Você nem imagina por onde você vai me ver chorar. Baby vai, baby vai, baby vai, baby vai, baby vai. Bota tudo dentro, vai ficar querendo mais. Só sentada firme, apaga a luz, se satisfaz. Baby, don't be shy.
Oh baby wine, baby wine, baby wine, baby wine, baby wine. Me I want to fire, make we fire, they go high. And if you want to look, make we look, they go high. Baby, don't be shy. Oh baby wine, baby wine, baby wine, baby wine, baby wine. Me I want to fire, make we fire, they go high. And if you want to look, make we look, they go high. Baby, don't be shy.
Get the people in a rampant. Get the people in a scared. No. What would I be doing with a girl like you? Unless I've got nothing else to do. What would I be doing with a girl like you? Unless I've got nothing better to do. You can't wash, can't cook, can't iron, can't clean, can't bubble, can't wine, can't nice up the scene. You can't wash, can't cook, can't iron, can't clean. Learn to do something, then you can come in. Every day you sit down and a laba. Shut people business on the corner. Don't leave your house, chaka. Don't even know how to dress proper. You can't wash, can't cook, can't iron, can't clean, can't bubble, can't wine, can't nice up the scene. You can't wash, can't cook, can't iron, can't clean. Learn to do something, then you can come in. Can't take a girl who is good for nothing. Don't have to be ugly or good looking. Don't have to have money or have nothing. To take pride in yourself and the things you're doing. Careless people me no want around me. Lazy people me no want check me. When you come at me, say you must be ready. For I no check for no Quebec. Can't wash, can't cook, can't iron, can't clean. Can't bubble, can't wine, can't nice up the scene. You can't wash, can't cook, can't iron, can't clean. Learn to do something, then you can come in. Whoa, careless people me no ramp with. Whoa, lazy people me no ramp with. Whoa, don't even know how to set a table. To take care of kids, you're not capable. To hold a good conversation, you're not able. Have no good manners and principle. Whoa, lazy people me no ramp with. Whoa, learn to do something for something to you. To sit down and idle can't help you. God help those who help themselves. Don't be like dead stock up on the shelves. Can't wash, can't cook, can't iron, can't clean, can't bubble, can't wine, can't nice up the scene. You can't wash, can't cook, can't iron, can't clean. Learn to do something, then you can come in. The careless people me no ramp with. What would I be doing with a girl like you? Unless I've got nothing else to do. What would I be doing with a girl like you? Unless I've got nothing better to do.
Cheza hiyo doba, jikitingiza topa. Mogoka inanionyesha leo nishuke na kamoja. Dunda lafu okota, legeza pa utatokwa. Situmezoza tangu enzi zaki. Watu washikane wawili, witaleta mbili. Lazima stawaka so nimejipini mazigizigi. Stingon za kided, so nacheza na kiwiliwili. Nishatepa kebi, moshi meja kwa watu washikane wawili, witaleta mbili. Lazima stawaka so nimejipini mazigizigi. Stingon za kided, so nacheza na kiwiliwili. Nishatepa kebi, moshi meja kwa wengi.
Cheza doba je vile imetubamba. Kubamba ni dobe, nafanya unakatika tu sana. Ni dobe, nafanya unatekewa makiala. Ni dobe, nafanya unakatiwa haraka. Ni doba je vile imetubamba. Kubamba ni doba je vile imetubamba. kufanya kuchana ni gato na maji pale za betagzin ni madani ila lafu steki moja ya yasin uwezi kompea bodi zetu tuna ship ni doga nafanya madenge wataitan na kuzoza tumetoka east mpaka London na songo kibonda kwa block shani hona misi nanga chills unapima na mabil hadi unalipa bills mimi nampeleka to east after this kila weekend tuko west ni madrinks na mashampin kama Mr. Rick Ross nikamba ya Rosa kinga home ni pro mchezo gani demana ni no come slow tuko na leka boss tuko job them show anataka ni waseti ya kingdom na mshow madamu wendi home madamu wenga doba vile metubamba kubamba ni doba nafanya unakatika tu sana ni doba nafanya unatekewa makiala ni doba nafanya unakatiwa haraka ni doba vile metubamba kubamba ni doba
DJ Gabu Adi Teacher representing Kati Kati Entertainment.
Makosi na kujua kimanga shikamoyo kuna vile tutakatiana ni headbutt nilimkataka ni point na panga niko na yangu naona tukikatiana staki ngori mob staki go staki kasiro suji kasido kasindo nafanya na float staki ngori mob staki go staki kasiro suji kasido kasindo nafanya na float siko na tianka ingia chinje bake kama bob nizika panya ni change one dead never me naja kushina wase sanse na mpress Catherine senge chinja maliza ule finya ndo ni squeeze mwere screen clear lazima itoshe mwere sisi achana na yeye aende niko soba nasikia lakini sipoa nasikia poa nikienda kukohoa na kukalika wakituona wanajiondoa cheki ngoge kwa shanda kutoa sini mafuta kwa visi kababa tunawanyoa nukudiriba tisho ya matoa toa ni mtoa kimikisi ndo napoa kani mejaa mchaleka limejikita menondo na mmoa hivyo mepasuka cheki na overflow kani vitevu na rusha kata iso mali mchoni lakini kata iso sindo wale tulichora makula kwa blackboard sisi mchora kusi na kutulia kumanga shikamoyo na vile tutakatiana ni headbutt nilimkataka ni point na panga niko na yangu naona tukikatiana staki ngori mob staki go staki kasiro staki kasiro staki ngori mob staki go staki kasiro
she wrote, murder she wrote, na na na, murder she wrote. Watch an house dance.
ukinvulia vest the rest najigongea. Utagongewa na si mayai, we utagongewa na si mlango, utagongewa we na si mayai, utagongewa na si mlango.
Inaongea nimeenda round sana chorea, kaliongea si mayai lakini kalichunea. Kibekenje kanalipiwa kasupu kakaendete, kadai beef lele tumishe veve. I'm not didi, miti kwangu ni samoro idwa samoro kidwa samoro. Kuna dema na kuchocha okan gimoro, sukam tomorrow hapana kukam godoro. Kuklap chicks ni maseagiza totoro.
Utagongewa na si mayai, we utagongewa na si mlango.
Oh you did. When you see a pretty girl and you're in the mood, flip that wing twice. Yeah, when you see a pretty girl and you're in the mood, you better think twice before you make your move. Hey, hey. Me brethren, give me now. Me and me brethren, them a walk on the street one night. We a laugh, we a talk, I enjoy the moonlight. Same time me brethren say, Charlie, prip to the right. When me look at one girl in a full suit of white, with the finger cock off and the pants fit tight. He said, Jesus, please, me have to get tight tonight. Same time me brethren say, Charlie, Chaplin, you're bright. How you live too long and you want to lose your life. You don't know how a woman, bad boy, bang a knife. Who kill 40 man over one red stripe. Kick up Gregory Isaac and teeth in coke pipe and blow up a mosquito with a chucker than the might. Crowd of people, you know. Me not tell no lie, me know my can't beat right. But me heart pick up a speed like the horse legal life. And me face wave when tiger catch stage fright. But all me know me have to get hard tonight. So me tell cross the road and say them thing you no right. Can man do such thing and say I spite him a spite. She put cross by me with a sexy eyesight. Now you know say me have her and my delight. Hey. Crowd of people, So here I know. She say have me excuse her on good night. Who you referring to? Me say the boy bang the night. Who me pass down there so with a dialogue up tight. She say you sure those things that you're talking is right. Me say you want to discuss over 2 bottles of Sprite or some Chinese food underneath the candlelight. If you were mine, I would call you Snow White and buy a lot of Sprite heel boost to increase your height. Hey. Crowd of people, Hear me now. Now you know me not be put out too much integrity. Cause with me pro popularity and me mental capacity. So
Twende.
Mini minor but me sick again. Topic of coffee lakini ni sick afena. Niko on top kama missionary baby. Unapenda jokes nikicheka demu yako na maybe. Pare. Yati ni versiona ni angiote. Pare. Ine mabera, ine malera. Pare. Chala de nyati ni angiote. Ngepa stoke teke jua kuna kuhepa piga matopa re ana kusha press tingo ni zile ngori watakubale top di top ni ma shot after shot mamzinga zikishaini kupop tuna pop kama mziki inadai si ma style ni a lot maninja wamefurahi juma demo wamemua topare changanya na mapangale nipate tu kwa zana be nikishikisha jabare chaki we topare yati ni versiona ni angiote topare ine mabera ine malera topare chala de nyati ni angiote topare ine malera ine malera
Munga topa lakini sidai cup kani mechi na jichocha kondede pale snap chat na mimi lazima shwenga chore map round after round utamu ina overlap nyap stop usinibie nyota spendi mapengo kwa social media maripota ufai kubonga ganje ikibonga unatekewa shweng anachomwa na okoka matop shot anatetemesha choki kwa shweng ushatokwa matopa mina mbogi koja siku wananjete ni yako ndo tunangoja
Yo, niaje, this is Selena Njoki the Brown Girl, Brown the Seductor. You're hanging out with Gabu Adi Teacher, Kati Entertainment, Kasonge.
Another banger. People they talk say na only woman as I be talk about, only me make I just they talk about them. I know we focus on the negativity inside my country, so me I got to change the matter. I don't talk, I don't shout, I don't bless, I don't come, I don't tweet, I don't cuss my dada. Cruise no they finishing you know they dance, you know they fear. Are you there? Are you there? Are you there? Are you there? You come party when they press phone for yeah. You better losing up but I like you don't care. Boomba, Kelly with the biggie booty they giving me. This type of girl if it to kill it pussy. And they see they put the girl for ecstasy. Monster they boosting my adrenaline. Making no one spend me to watch orderly. Brotherly me nobody gonna bother me. Brotherly me nobody gonna judge me. Nobody a holy pa Mary Magdalene. On top my money you are gonna shout for me. The one way Buhari chop a many he God for me. When they play Dori me for the club for me. People they dive up. People see they go club that day. People not send it. They happen each and every other day. Caskets plus the Undertaker song where they play. I face reality cause me I know fi ever run away. Wait. Me I know fi ever run away. Wait. Wake up. Are you there? Are you there? Are you there? Are you there? You just smoke, you don't want to creep at DJ. You hear my song, you know they dance.
I gonna be na right, na left, na tolo got the sweat, na wife, na set, mango stima gize, wakido, na, sijatoa the vest, mashiro, tunatandikia maleso. Na gonna be, kido, na, dandia na usichoke, kido, na, dandia na usichoke, kido na, dandia na usichoke, kido na, piga kama fair, kido na, dandia na usichoke, kido na, dandia na usichoke, kido na, dandia na usichoke, kido na, piga kama fair.
Ampiga lesona inakani kitamba. Dongeze mateso hatembei anatamba. Vipi hauna shi utampataje na shanga. Umekalia deposit amekalia shamba. Manzi we ni keki shida utaki today. Nikimchekia na smile naanza kuspeculate. Na ikifika saa ya mechi apenda debate. Anaipenda kiwa juu top G Andrew Tate. Wako na nyundo na hii yangu ni gefoi. Metoka Japan, Taiwan, sio mboi. Nimekuwa mtukutu tangu nikuwe mtoi. Pigwe tetanus mpaka useme boy.
Nigga na pina right, na left, na tolo got the sweat, na wife, na set, mango stima gize, wakido, na, sijatoa the vest, mashiro, tunatandikia maleso. Gonna be, kido, na, dandia na usichoke, kido, na, dandia na usichoke, kido na, dandia na usichoke, kido na, piga kama fair, kido, na, dandia na usichoke, kido, na,
siku ya kwanza uliponitokea nilishindwa hata kujizuia, karibu nawe nikakupitia, haya nguvu nikakutolea, tabasamu ukaliachia, viungo vyote vilinilegea, pale nawe uliponitikia, mambo yote yakasisimka. Nimeshakupenda, nimekuzimia, sijiwezi tena hata kusogea.
Bila ganjito na dance. I'm a Nairobi body of course. Face pretty missy pendi story mob. Skin soft Nicky wine missy force. Unanisoma daily na bado na fail course. I be in the gym I can body like a horse. My money too long wanna die ni wash. Set for the girl too fine oh gosh. See the middleman only talk to the boss. Baby girl see you wine baby girl. Baby girl that you wine baby girl. Baby girl see you wine baby girl. Fanya mabola wote wazubae baby girl. Baby girl, see you wine, baby girl, hey. Baby girl, that's you wine, baby girl, hey. Baby girl, see you
DJ
wine,
Gabu
baby
as
girl.
teacher. Teach them, teacher.
And if you hear me something, go on with your back. Go on with your knees, baby, shake it to the max. Did you please turn up the bass to the max? Please just rewind, let me shake it to the max. 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 Please just rewind, let me shake it to the max.
Bad man she love. Bad man she love, yeah. Bad man she love, yeah. Bad man she love. Bad man she love, yeah. Bad man she love. Bad man she love, yeah. Your pussy fat inna your shot.
Oh, you dealing with the boss?
Make you come first, coulda never take a last, yeah. Like a ball pump up the pussy fast. Skin out the pussy for me fuck it. Girl you make it cocky brad. Original girl, some of them a dinner calf.
And if you hear this song, then go on with your back. Go on with your knees, baby, shake it to the max. Did you please turn up the bass to the max? Please just rewind, let me shake it to the max. Shake it to the max. Shake it to the max. Shake it to the max.
top, yeah. Wanna watch my body like say them a watch a match, yeah. Anything him say them gyal a do it like it's tax. But make my own money like the girls in movie trap. Classy, real bad girl ma get nasty. I do whatever I want just because I'm bossy. Yes, I'm the one in charge. Never get my booms and him still fall in love. Yes, I know anybody can touch this. Baby, I am not a hoe. Rice and peas, body hotter than the love. I feel bigger taste anyway, you see my pass.
And if you hear this and then go and bend your back, go and bend your knees, baby, shake it to the max. Will the DJ please turn up the bass to the max? Please just rewind, let me shake it to the max. Shake it to the max. Shake it to the max.
I'm bring the body, better than the African body. You know me body, the body. You know me better than the average African body.
Say body, the body, me uncle the body. Say she want a piece, me say happily mommy. Yeah, me love a girl who take care of your body. Me love a girl who ain't afraid of nobody. And a bad man a deal with it to do it properly. African gangsters, Bossa Blanca make me say, yard man, on the scene, I'm have to feel with energy. Road boy, keep it cool, you don't have to feel with enemy. Good girl walk with a pretty girl smile. Hot girl profile, in a bad girl style. Independent, no beg a Rex. Anything where you want, you can spend that car. Body, the body, me uncle the body. So she want a piece, me say happily mommy. I'm a African queen, me a go for me yummy. Yard man, pan the scene, I'm have to feel with energy.
You know you make me wanna spend all my pounds on you. Jump on your ones and twos. Spend all my dollars on you. Yeah. You know you make me wanna give up my time for you. La dance for you. You. I'm the body, better than the African body. You know me body, the body. You know me better than the average African body. So this sound, the body, better than the African
Natural beauty, the police and top. Me dead serious, me girl like a heart attack. Why it up, take it, chop chop. React, oh, girl bust a wine when she sit up on the lap. Big man thing, we not afraid of no man. It only matter one thing, girl. Eh, you make every move, pull pan the shot. Say such a man and go sabu me the shot. Me suka pan the shot. Isi baki me so bad.
Yo, Dre.
Stevie Boca Dopa. Stona kosi nako juu ya dimanga shikamorio kuna vile tutakatiana ni headbutt nilimkataka ni point na panga niko na yangu naona tukikatiana staki ngori mob staki ho staki kasiro skuji kasido kasindom nafanya na float staki ngori mob staki ho staki kasiro skuji kasido kasindom nafanya na float siko na thianka ingia chinje pake kama bob hezi kafanya ni change one dead never me najua kushina wase sanse na mpes kadhani ni senge denge chinja maliza ule sebe finya ndo ni squeeze mwere je screen clear lazima itoshe mwere sezi achana na aende niko soba nasikia lakini sipoa tasikia poa nikianza kukohoa na kubalika wakituona wanajiondoa Dudum cheki ngoge koshanza kutoa sini mabuda kwa visika baba tunawanyoa Lukudiriba tisho ya madoa ni mpoa kinikisi ndo na poa kani meja mchaleke alinidigida meno ndo na mngoa Rivye mepasuka cheki na overflow kani videvu na rusha kata iso Malini choni lakini kata iso Sindo wale tulichora makula kwa blackboard Siezi medibase na kuna murio asidi Wanifalo mechipimp bado weni pipi Kona mling tatu moja ndo kona risiti Cheki chuo mkaribu ofisi Stona akosi na kujuu ya dimanga shika murio Kuna vile tutakatiana ni headbutt nilimkataka ni point na panga. Niko na yangu naona tukikatiana. Staki ngori mob, staki ho, staki kasiro. Skuji kasido, kasindom, nafanya na float. Staki ngori mob, staki ho, staki kasiro. Skuji kasido, kasindom, nafanya na float.
Madenka.
Stevie. Yeah. Mboka doba. Mama D.O.X. Hadiza na DVD na msundi ya CD. Mnachujo ndani ya church ndo mwende mjiridim. Na ukilalishia miss one time na delete. Na nikakuwa na shing, takushing, utableed. Ukijaribu kutupeana chini ya maji. Skills ni za Navy Army. Agabigi brown ni kama tuko Miami. Confused sasa ntafuata ya nani. Keja ni double na si tunashido 1 to 5. Si lazima steam atindo come to fight. Before niombe collabo nadhani unajua price mekumark. Takuangusha on site. Funga belt na cannabis ready for a flight. Next up na land kwa set right piece of cake. Na bado nachukua big bite. Black night cause I'm a magnificent thug. Magnificent. Tuko na wings no horns maleficent. Nanuka war do like my scent. Perfect thugging I'm a magnificent thug. Magnificent. Tuko na wings no horns maleficent. Nanuka war do like my scent. Perfect thugging. Ati bad man I know want attention. Elevate man them never fall. Says this is the defeated destination. Nikona kingu isikololi at the top. Ati bad man I know want attention. Elevate man them never fall. Says this is the defeated destination. Nikona kingu isikololi at the top. Kama Nicholas na mcage. Niko na bolts ama guts instead. Doe siyo manly, yuko na bolts as ya grapes. Haga siyo size pia tunangalia shape. One step, nasema grace. Mboka doba man, fuck the fame. Kama bed nego, mnare niko on flames. Ukinipata na chip, neza explain. Kama si, misirogi, zi. Mi, nambogi, utuoni, zi. Zinichachishia ndakuweka kofi. Midungi ya kabuti, nikipele kwa koti. Mistoroki, zi. Ka, ningori, mistoroki, zi. Nadil nae one man deli jioni. Sina kiyo kuwa bad man, misi jioni. I'm a magnificent thug. Magnificent. Tuko na wings no horns maleficent. Nanuka war do like my scent. Perfect thugging I'm a magnificent thug. Magnificent. Tuko na wings no horns maleficent. Nanuka war do like my scent. Perfect thugging. Ati bad man I know want attention. Elevate man them never fall. Nikitembea kwa hood, niko na something to offer na nothing to lose. Very rude, misdai kuwa good. Kwa hood, the good ndio ugezongwa food. Tension, joma boys in blue. Neza takwa bure na bado uzame tu. Valia hood, washindo kukuzum. Kwa hood, ndani ya hood, nikitembea kwa hood. Nikitembea kwa approach kwa umbali utadhani niko cool. Karibia ni kuprove ni full. Si lazima attitude ndo nikuwe understood. Magazine nairudigi home full. Kwezi chuo mwana buya. Ndani ya kifua bling thousand jua. Dead boys everyday juu ya duya. Nikinukisha after nimezidi ndo tanusa. Kalori ya takataka kwa highway. Sijali wengine on my own lane. Ality after kupatiwa long cane. Ananitati lyrically ni long name. Mostly nimeona na ngoza birthday. Mezungukwa na magoshodo ka bonfire. Nikitambo uski mi nilisha expire. Nimejiaminia one man empire. Sina rada ya mbele guy. Nikitembea kwa hood, niko na something to offer na nothing to lose. Very rude, misdai kuwa good. Kwa hood, the good ndio ugezongwa food. Tension, joma boys in blue. Neza takwa bure na bado uzame tu. Valia hood, washindo kukuzum. Kwa hood, ndani ya hood, nikitembea kwa hood. Nikitembea kwa na wasiumu wakingoja ni wa muse. Ngware boys akirau alam wewe una snooze kwa miguu na ground nimeshikilia karo tuliko sana sasa wanadai truth mapufa polisi na mraia nakopa sisi watu waamini na sio wao pia sisi kwa sisi hadi pretty misi onyeshi pretty na move kakipindi Father God lakini usiniache guide me niko kwa giza just lighting makanji nikanafanya drug dealer nyongo akidai kunikulia mahangri Father God lakini usiniache guide me niko kwa giza just lighting makanji nikanafanya drug dealer nyongo akidai kunikulia mahangri nikitembea kwa hood niko na something to offer na nothing to lose very rude misdai kuwa good kwa hood the good ndio ugezongwa food tension joma boys in blue neza takwa bure bure na bado uzame tu valia hood washindo kukuzum kwa hood ndani ya hood nikitembea kwa hood nikitembea kwa
kick a chick out of the studio for shit's nuts. And nah, like in Cal's words, the truth is madder than fiction, fam. It's nuts out here.
Look, I see a thing that I touch, tell me about talking stage, gotta tell her don't force it. Beef man, pepper and salt it, me and RJ gotta pull up, no talking trap. You ain't got a rack to your name, my bro, Brick Lane, we don't know about Shoreditch. Rental, I never insured it, M25 gotta whip that calmly. Man try beef, my doggy, Warzone ting, how I come for a party. My little nigga can't lose that cash, I drop YGs, do it like Kalani. I don't rock Gucci or Armani, ST from ST, I can't squash that beef like fruit and barley. Still got a one black star like Kwame. Free car convoy in Sutton. My mum got matching whips with young'uns. Should've made Sinead hold on something, but it never would've worked, cause the girl too stubborn. Young G's talking my name on the ends, gotta tell him, man, please don't risk it. On the right day, man, I just frisk him. On the wrong day, I'm getting man airlifted. I'm in Hollywood Hills with a white Rolls Royce and a one brown in from Compton. The Lambo parked just in front, man, pull up to the bumper and do it like Conscience. She wanna go LV, no problem. Went for the cheapest bag, that's nonsense. I took 100 bags from Barclays Bank, no cap, you can go and ask Ellie. That one mine, bouncing Betty. The bag 4K like a HD telly. Best believe that I'm back like Nelly. Chest petite with a back like jelly. I'm seeing man sent indirects. If you want a war man, then you better be vocal. My right hand got a semi that's local, and this brown and I can't post on socials. My girl gotta be far from social. I don't wanna see her at Carney. 488 in the party, LBC, how I nicked the Ferrari. Girl say we're the littiest batch in South London, and bro's a fact. Airport, we're going for bands. I hopped out the plane, I ain't going for dance. What you know about telling the 10-10 to keep her clothes on and moving good? I ain't on beating or misogyny, it's mahogany, I got bougie wood. Look, Airbnb with the guys, it's a white man's face that I used to book. Chill with the stupid looks, or it's gonna be a kettle that I used to cook.
A-Time. Next year, visionary shit. Piece of the what? King and you know it. Hey. No money niko maganji. No money wani mtiaji. No money niko magadi. No money niko bagadi. No money mini refugee lakini saijo siko kwa kambi. No money very soon kikoro boy natoa kitambi. No money hamni bambi. No money ni wote mababi. Choria uchi UGK. Ona ni kompia na bambi. No money niko maganji nigga. No money una kipaji. Walenje dozi na kala clash. Ita pita marangi. Daro niko mabangi. Ita Mr. Matiangi. No man niko mangiai. Wewe kuku mayai. Jogo Road pale Amsha hapo ndo utani wai. Kujeni na ex wangu bado mskia mwezi ni wai. No man ni mi baba Tracy. No man ni mi baba Zara. No man ni mi baba Freddy Flacco wakiniona wanahala. No man ni mi baba Malcolm X wadimu wananidara. No man ni uliokoka. No man ni niko mogoka. No man ni niko maganji. No man ni weni mtiaji. No man ni niko magadi. No man ni niko bakadi. No man ni mini refugee lakini saijo siko kwa kambi. No man ni very soon kikoro boy natoa kitambi. No man ni niko maganji. No man ni weni mtiaji. No man ni niko magadi. No man ni niko bagadi. No man ni mini refugee lakini saijo siko kwa kambi. No man ni very soon kikoro boy natoa kitambi. He's the king and you know it. He's the king and you know it. Everything I rap about, better believe I own it. Kila ngumi udunga bana, better believe I bought it. Mziki ni ndondi boxing, after Chris ni boxing. Mayweather ni king ya kwa ring, my punchline azikosi. Walianza mwaka na pupa, nilikuwa hosi nimechill. I'm sick and you know it. I'm a dick, I'm blowing. Superstar, I'm glowing. Neck freeze, I'm snowing. Hizo chota za kurapa faster, Buddha joke, I'm slowly. Niki spit Ebola, kwenye street mi bola. Natana mixed feelings bana, wamekuwa bipolar. Where shillings me dollars, where shati me collar. Wali try kunikola, kini sipatikani true caller. Ay, kila subject ni A.
kila ndai ni E-class. Mwaga tei kwa higlas, funga bao na hipa. Noma ni niko maganji, noma ni weni mtiaji. Noma ni niko magadi, noma ni niko bagadi. Noma ni mini refugee lakini saijo siko kwa kambi. Noma ni very soon kikoro boy natoa kitambi. Noma ni niko maganji, noma ni weni mtiaji. Noma ni niko
always watching me, I feel just like a TV.
Yeah.
They always thought it. And yo, listen. No, he said, low key to the flex. I wanna be the best.
Wow.
Aki, I'm the best.
She said she a queen, so I play her like a... I just wanna ball out like my
It's dope. Every time we step up on the scene, we make it pop. Yeah, miss you Ezzy. Miss you Ezzy, stop. Yeah, miss you Ezzy. Miss you Ezzy, stop. Shorty Yako box, they telling me to stop. Every time we step up on the scene, we make it pop. Yeah, miss you Ezzy. Miss you Ezzy, stop. Yeah, miss you Ezzy. Miss you Ezzy, stop. Yeah, no key to na flex. On a villain address. Aki, I'm the best. Yeah, Aki, I'm the best. She say she a queen, so I play her like it's chess. I just wanna ball out like my homies in US. I had a couple issues, so I put it in the music. I had a couple issues, had a homie feeling useless. They said they gon' run me up, I told them niggas prove it. Out here in Nairobi, swear these niggas never do shit. I roll with the trappers, I roll with the masters. I don't have the bag, I cannot lie, I'm not a capper. Still we going up, call the gang the Kenyan NASA. Running up a check and there's nobody running faster. I roll with the trappers, I roll with the masters. I don't have the bag, I cannot lie, I'm not a capper. Still we going up, call the gang the Kenyan NASA. Running up a check and there's nobody running faster. Vile shorty yako box, they telling me to stop. Every time we step up on the scene, we make it pop. Yeah, miss you Ezzy. Miss you Ezzy, stop. Yeah, miss you Ezzy. Miss you Ezzy, stop. Shorty yako box, they telling me to stop. Every time we step up on the scene, we make it pop. Yeah, miss you Ezzy. Miss you Ezzy, stop. Yeah, miss you Ezzy. Miss you Ezzy, stop. Yeah, miss you Ezzy. Aye, cheza chini. Yani ulidhani hini nini? Why they always watching me? I feel just like a TV. Why they always plotting like a map and yeah, we free me? I swear we stay swagged up, my homies get the bag, yup. Times that we was down like a syndrome, now you know what's up. Kenyan with the Kenyan juice, Nike ticks all on my shoes. Taboo check the pants with my Vans and the dance moves, yeah. Millie rock the pain till it's gone like, yeah. Odi dance the pain while I'm gone like, yeah. Never fall in love, but I can like, yeah. Baby, I'm the man like, yeah. Millie rock the pain till it's gone like, yeah. Odi dance the pain while I'm gone like, yeah. Never fall in love, but I can like, yeah. Baby, I'm the man like, yeah. Shorty yako box, they telling me to stop. Every time we step up on the scene, we make it pop. Yeah, miss you Ezzy. Miss you Ezzy, stop. Yeah, miss you Ezzy. Miss you Ezzy, stop. Shorty yako box, they telling me to stop. Every time we step up on the scene, we make it pop. Yeah, miss you Ezzy. Miss you Ezzy, stop. 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 Miss you Ezzy. Yeah, miss you Ezzy, stop. Miss you Ezzy. Yeah, miss you Ezzy, stop. Vile shorty yako box, they telling me to stop. Every time we step up on the scene, we make it pop. Yeah, miss you Ezzy. Miss you Ezzy, stop. Yeah, miss you Ezzy. Miss you Ezzy, stop. Shorty yako box, they telling me to stop. Every time we step up on the scene, we make it pop. Yeah, miss you Ezzy. Miss you Ezzy, stop. Yeah, miss you Ezzy. Miss you Ezzy, stop. Yeah, miss you Ezzy. Really rock the pain till it's gone like, yeah. Odi dance the pain while I'm gone.
Nataka usikie ngoma guns. Sijui vile utafeel.
Ayaga.
Ready, sijui vile unafeel. Umezoesha vibaya ndo ujiwezi. Unasikiza jamaa mbaya bana, very true. Na washika bila kuwavalia navy blue. Malaika na nisho umeweka mapenzi juu. Yeah, rumors za maskando za ulava na lady drama. Na tisteto mali uko na baby mama. Kwa mitandao kila siku ni story new, bando za
niko hapa kwa mziki mzuri, wako hapa tu kwa famous. Ama jualisia marapa upendo na madame bass wanajiita lyricist. Kwa hizi interviews na mimi tu ndo metwa lyric video kaita million views out. Yeah. Ishiski. Yeah. Sedo. Yeah. Etinyashi area sulikam na ubaya. Ikuwa tusema area tungekwamia Ulaya. Merudi wasanii wakaanza kuambiwa retire. Secular lakini unaandika gospel fire. Siliva lie, najua nitasoundikan kwa madreba juzi walai. Nilipanda matatu na train na siuzi mayai. Nimetoka mbali aise na si shirongai. True story. Leto si mtarudiana lakini hatujaiachana tunarudiana kwa nini na majaliwa inshallah. Mimi na vijana wawili tutazidi sana kando na kukosana niamini. Tusipimani akili mimi na kicha. Waambie wache kujichokesha ulimi mimi ndo ticha. Enye mazee watacha lini kujichocha juu ni clear. Tukisimama ona mimi mimi na prefer. Yeah, aminia. Oh na 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 na. 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 Fulani eribaki mteja tu. Au kitoka ni achange kwa keja tu. Najua ikilia ni mtu anataka favor tu. Kila conversation ni kade javu. Maisha imejana watu fake si uongo. Na visu za kunidunga nikiwageuzia mgongo. Washa sense ndakafunga sawa na nyemelea. Siwezi afford kumwaga unga najitegemea. Sieki imani kwa binadamu mimi. Naeka imani kwa God si kwa sanaa mimi. Kasi kupendi sikufichi. No pretending hata simu zenu mimi sishiki. Nikwe pissed kwa nini? Siko pissed niamini mimi niko bie. Na go through vitu real ka nyinyi mimi pia. Maybe tuagiu beats au gear. Tuwezi wagia tiko rapa na tuwa hits ka mimi aminia. Oh na 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 na. Oh na 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 na. Oh na 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 na. Changed his mind, well maybe. Baby I'm a fool for you. Mapenzi kipofu, kipenda maovu. Huoni, oh love is blind, never seemed so true. When I'm broke, natumianga bro, please call me. Akipiga naomba do, mbona kuna message najitumanga, send me money. To cut a long story short, yo, vumilia na mimi. Please don't leave me, don't let the money fool you. Sponsors just wanna use you. Namwambia mtoto wa mama siharibike. Hananisho ni biashara tu. Na siwezi mshibisha na panganga tu. Na mwezi ukiisha sina ujanja. Na renti kibishwa wanga blanda. Oh baby, kwa nami wakati sina. Leo sina kitu, kesho nitafanikiwa. Na nikibarikiwa, ahadi yangu ni sitasahau mali imetoka nawe. Baby, kwa nami wakati sina. Leo sina kitu, kesho nitafanikiwa. Na nikibarikiwa, ahadi yangu ni sitasahau mali imetoka nawe. Baby, only you baby, you're my only one. My only one. Girl I wanna take you to my mama, show her you're the one for me. I'll never ever leave you. Oh believe me when I say you will forever be my queen. Yule nalana ye kwa dhiki, mtalana ye kwa faraja. Ahadi yangu ndio hiyo. Kama pamoja tumelia, tutacheka pamoja. Vumilia na mimi, please don't leave me. Don't let the money fool you. Sponsors just wanna use you. Toto wa mama usiharibike. Oh baby, kwa nami wakati sina. Leo sina kitu, kesho nitafanikiwa.
nimetoka na wewe wewe. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mali nimetoka na wewe wewe. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, sana icheza kabubu. Baby no more talk, just do. When time kama buyu, stay kwa chini uko juu. Forever be my only one. Tukiachana itaniuma na joke kuna niga na ngoja nichome aruke ndani ka super sub. Usiache it happen. Shikilie kasiri. Ki make it in life then. Kushikilie pia mimi. You make me whole, baby. Don't let me go. Stay beside me. You make me complete. How will my heart beat without you? Baby, baby, mbona miwakati sina. Leo sina kitu, kesho ntafanikiwa. Na nikibarikiwa, ahadi yangu ni sitasahau mali nimetoka nawe. Baby, mbona miwakati sina. Leo sina kitu, kesho ntafanikiwa. Na nikibarikiwa, ahadi yangu ni sitasahau mali nimetoka na wewe wewe.
sucks. Some sucks. Big some sucks. some socks.
Could we get everyone seated? I know, amazing snacks, good Kenyan coffee. I get it. If there's anyone still outside, could you come in? Great. So good evening, everyone. Wow. Good evening, everyone. Oh, thank you. Hi. Good evening until Dr. Salome tells me, good evening. Yes, I see you. Yes, okay. I hope everyone has had an amazing day. Yes, I have had such great sessions. Yay! Okay, good. I have engaged in some games as well. I don't know if you guys have had an opportunity to go back here. Oh, not yet. Some really coloring, fun activities. I went into the experience sensory session. They got like this orb and VR, and it's amazing. When we are done for the day, take the opportunity to explore the spaces. So now, for our last panel of the day, I'd like to invite my colleague Riaz to call up the panel. Thank you. Give her a hand.
Yeah, it's on. That's on. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. How are we feeling today? End of the day. I don't think Trademark has seen this much coffee consumed in a while. So I'm going to see that as a very good sign. Our last panel for today, as we recall, day one has really been about reflecting how far we've come, the challenges that we've navigated, and I think a running theme when we reflect on the 5 years of Schools 2030 has been the important and critical partnership with government and government entities. And I think many of them are represented in the room, and they will be certainly represented on the panel today. I'm going to call up my panelists, who are equally mic'd up like I am. Dr. Elias Abdi, Director General, State Department for Basic Education, Kenya. Sporting what I should say is some very, very good swag. So thank you, Dr. Elias, for representing. Second, Francis Atima, Directorate of Education Standards, Uganda. And last but certainly not least, Jeremy Hopkins, Deputy Regional Director, UNICEF Eastern and Southern Africa Office. Colleagues, thank you again for making the time. I understand schedules are hectic, but certainly an important conversation. Dr. Elias, I think most appropriate, as we are co-hosting the Global Forum with the Ministry of Education today, I think most appropriate that we start with you. And very, very keen to understand from your perspective, Kenya's overall approach to connecting schools to broader education systems. And how do you find that approach has evolved over the past couple of years?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. And I want to start by, first of all, appreciating what has transpired here today, the good presentations, the background we're given about Schools 2030, and the fact that this forum is expected to contribute to the achievements of SDG 4. Having said that, I think what there is first of all, in an education process, or rather an education system, we start mainly with the first question. In an education setting, the first thing to ask ourselves is, what is to be taught? It is about the curriculum. The next, of course, is who is to be taught, the child, where should it be taught, the school, how should it be taught, who is to teach, the teacher, and so on. How can we know that learning has taken place? These are the fundamental questions that we end, what kind of materials will be used to support the teaching and the learning. So the broader system, is very crucial, just like any other system, be it, for example, even if you look at, for example, what the system theory itself says. Because for an entire education system to work appropriately, then every person in the system, every bit, every institution must do its part. And so, for us, this discussion, putting the teacher at the center, is very critical. And that's why we say here in Kenya, the context could be different. But in Kenya, for example, when it comes to what is to be taught, the curriculum itself, our teacher is at the center of it. Because we cannot claim to develop a curriculum for a subject, mathematics, geography, history, English language, Kiswahili, and then the teacher misses from the table. It is not possible. The practicing teacher who's in the classroom is at the core of developing curriculum in Kenya. And so the entire system, the teacher is there. So sometimes when I hear teachers sometimes saying they are not consulted and so on, because if it is the curriculum itself, what is to be taught? The issue of even the children, the school level, every aspect, the teacher is there in the whole hog. They're there, they are present. And so, connecting the schools to the entire system. In Kenya, for example, in curriculum development, we have the subject panels. The curriculum is first initiated by the subject panels. The chair of the subject panel is usually a school inspector or a quality assurance officer. The people developing, the members of the panel are teachers. Then from there it moves to, the course panel. Teachers are still there. The academic panel. And eventually it will end up at the Ministry of Education. Yes, we have 400,000 teachers on the payroll in Kenya, the government payroll. We may not involve all of them, but they are there. They are at the heart of the curriculum development. Then, when the curriculum is developed centrally, it moves to the school for implementation. Who's implementing it? It's the teacher. The textbooks that are used, it's written by the teachers. From the school now, is about the assessment. The assessment bit again. Those test items, everything that's required, is the teachers that do that. And so the examination, who marks in Kenya, it's the same teachers who are in class who mark the exam, and they're involved. So to us, the teacher is the center in this. In any case, once you support your teacher and all that. But I just wanted also to point out that as a sector, we are also in, the aspect of, comparing ourselves with what takes place in the region. We are, in terms of assessment, because we talked about so much about assessment, and the 3 steps that has been initiated here: assess, innovate, showcase. You assess mainly for learning, assessment for learning. You assess, look at the level of the child. Then as a result of the level of the child, because in a given situation, a class is made up of slow learners, average learners, fast learners. So the teacher innovates to ensure that he brings the slow learners to the level of the rest. And so we are also regionally we participate in the SACMEC, Southern and Eastern African Consortium for Measuring Education Quality. We compare ourselves with 15 sub-Saharan African countries. We also, for the first time, Kenya will sit for PISA in 2025, for the first time. And we will be comparing our 15-year-olds with even OECD countries. So we'll see how we can assess ourselves. And so that is really very critical. So I think we have connected schools to the broader system, mainly even on issues of data. Not data, quantitative data is not about the numbers. It's not about the issue of, you know, how many teachers have we deployed, how many students have gone to school, but also, you know, data, learning data. Kenya has even gone to the extent where when we are supporting our teachers, we go to class, maybe a quality assurance officer, inspector goes to school, you know, takes data from the classroom and send it to a server. The data that's received at the headquarters is later used to improve even in servicing of the teachers, because we get the strength and the weaknesses of lessons and so on. So this has been very critical for us in ensuring that the system works as a whole. In the area of teachers, again, in servicing and pre-servicing, we have done the much we could, but I would say that there's still areas that we need to improve, because the numbers are a bit high, 400,000 teachers, you know, ensuring that all of them are supported on job, attending to their needs, is a bit also demanding. Thank you very much.
Dr. Elias, I think, you know, noting a couple of points in terms of just the holistic and comprehensive approach that the ministry takes, and real challenges as well, and we'll certainly unpack those. And having met many 15-year-old Kenyans, I think we can fully expect the PISA scores to be very, very competitive. So congratulations on moving into that direction as well. I want to shift countries and skip along Lake Victoria, and we end up in Uganda. Francis, you know, the partnership with the Ministry of Education and the Aga Khan Development Network is one that is quite extensive, and you know, it's evolved over the past couple of years as well. And I think some of the approaches that the Ministry of Education in Uganda has deployed is reflective of that evolution. And I'm very curious, from your perspective, how has connecting schools to broader systems, how has that changed over the past couple of years? What's been standing out to you from where you sit, please?
Thank you so much, and good afternoon to you all. I would like to start by saying that Uganda universalized the education. We have the universal primary education. That was in 1998, yeah. Then we moved to universal secondary education. And that, of course, brings in so many challenges, where we saw a number of children accessing school. And I don't think we're very prepared. We were shocked at the number of children that came to school. And we started with a policy of 4 children, of which among the 4 there must be a girl and a child with disability. But that was overtaken by events that we could not now block other children who are willing to come to school, including young children below their age, because we have a 6-year-old starting primary 1, because we have 7, 4, and 2. That is our system. But we had children underage who also wanted to come to primary school. So with that kind of mix, we, of course, we're focusing on the 3 main pillars. That was access, we have quality, and then the other 3rd one, which I've skipped. So what happened, we achieved in terms of access, because we had about, in the beginning, 6 million children coming to school. I think now we moved to 8, and overall, there are about 15 million. And you all may be aware, you have been reading that in the latest census, we should be having maybe among the youngest population in the world, about 60% between the age of 0 to, I think, 25. So that, of course, poses so much challenge in terms of education that's giving a lot of pressure to the education system. Therefore, the partnership is very important because as government alone, you will not be able to achieve all this. And Aga Khan has been a great partner for as many years that I know, because I've been in education, I've grown there for the last 22 years. And I have gone through the levels from the lowest as officer to a director level. And all that time, I have known the greatest partnership started with early childhood development, and they've been working very closely with Ministry of Education and other partners, not just education. And I'm aware that they had a very strong working relationship with UNICEF in Uganda, and popularly what we're calling the Madarasa schools. And so that brought a different approach and thinking towards how education should be delivered at ECD. As Uganda, ECD is more in the hands of the private sector. Of course, we regulated, but we didn't have that written document that was regulating until recently. I think last year we have now a policy on ECCE as Uganda. And so as education standards, where I sit, we've developed what we call the basic requirements and minimum standards for pre-primary schools, which is really operationalizing the policy. And members of Aga Khan had been part and parcel of that whole conversation. They were our stakeholders, and we started with them right from the beginning to the end. So it's been really a great partnership. Now, it has evolved over years from ECD to primary education, to secondary education. Of course, started with fewer schools, and I think about 21 or 20, moved to 90, and then now to 78 schools. Now, they have been at primary level, because of the numbers, we have really big numbers. The teacher-pupil ratio is quite high. And once a teacher is stressed, then they may not also look at innovative ways of teaching. And through Aga Khan, for schools where they have been focusing, they have created that intrinsic kind of motivation where teachers know that despite the challenge we have, we can still innovate and be able to deliver education. Uganda, like also other East African countries, are also implementing the competence-based education, and we are focusing on the lower secondary to start with. And we already had our first cohort who sat their examinations last year. And we also now you had to reform the assessment system, where you have 20%, 80% formal, and then the other one is the informal one. So in their approach towards supporting secondary education, they picked on the transition class, the critical, that is senior 2. And at senior 2 is when we start consolidating knowledge. And therefore the teachers were creating innovative approaches because we have what we call projects, which are transmitted to our Uganda National Examination Board. And it appears in the certificates of children. And so if you've not done a project as a child and the school has not submitted, you don't get a certificate. So all schools are compelled to have projects for their learners. And so a lot of work around that has also been done by Aga Khan, And you can clearly see that so much a teacher can do when they are given opportunity to work with the learners. And then lastly, I think I would like to also look at the transition classes in primary 4, which is also a very critical class where they've been focusing on, and of course top class. But the other highlights, really what we would like to appreciate Aga Khan is working with the disadvantaged communities. They are tapping into the refugee. As you know, we are one of the highest refugee hosting countries. And therefore, it means if you go to the hosting schools, we have so many ECD children, we have also others. And so they have tried to transform and help, especially when it comes to skills and values. These children, when they come from their countries, they come when they're totally lost because of the different environments, what they have gone through. And so they needed different approaches which you may not learn through our trainings of teachers. So they've added a lot of value. And I know for sure they've also been working with the slum areas. And we all know that also children who come without really trying to put them down, but we know that most of our children, when they come from the slum communities, where the absentee parents, the environment there is not really nurturing them. So they come with different characters. And when you visit those schools, you realize that there's so much that is changing over the period. So by the time children get into the next, maybe the top classes, they are totally different in terms of their behavior. So I think really for me, there's a lot that is happening. There are a lot of changes. There's more stakeholder engagement than before. There's a line of CSOs that they are working with, partnering with, and to me, that is really a plus in terms of sustainability.
Francis, thank you. I mean, Uganda, one of the youngest populations on the planet, and the pace and scale of changes that Uganda needs to navigate. I mean, I feel that you've only highlighted just a handful, but yet very comprehensive, from ECD to critical inflection points in the learning journey as well, and how the ministry is very focused on ensuring and underwriting success, pressures around refugee populations as well, certainly no short of challenges. And I want to come back on that point around challenges. Dr. Elias, you know, we have a diversity of environments, learning environments across Kenya. How do we reconcile national goals with the need for local flexibility?
Thank you. So our education system is centralized. By that I mean it is, you know, we have a very big country. So from the north, south, east, all the children do the same curriculum. And so the education sector has mainly 8 goals to achieve. But you see, maybe some other countries, school curricula could be devolved. Different regions could be having different curriculum, but ours is a bit centralized. But all I just want to say is that the process of developing the goals, the curriculum, the policies are very consultative. In Kenya, public participation is a requirement by law. And so before, as a policy is you know, signed off, we involve, you know, the stakeholders. But all we do at this level is to ensure that the sector is well resourced so that we're able to provide for all the schools within their environment. Kenya, for example, has a total of around 24,000 public primary schools with a student enrollment of 6 million children. In the secondary subsector, We have 9,500 schools with an enrollment of, close to over 3 million. So the pre-primary also is very huge enrollment. And so what government does is annually, the budget allocation is 30% of our annual budget goes to education, to such an extent that, the recommendation at the UNESCO level, they say 15 to 20% of the annual budget should go to education. Here we've prioritized education. So there's that flexibility at the institutional level, in the sense that every institution is governed by a board, and this board is mainly from the local community. So we have given them some level of autonomy to take decisions at that level. And the parents association, the board at that level take decisions that affect them. The context, is addressed at that level. But centrally, government, provides teaching and learning material that is as per the curriculum that's developed centrally. We give resources to every child based on the capitation model. For example, in secondary schools, we give an annual capitation around $200 per child. At the junior level, junior school, we give around $150 per child, an estimated amount. So yes, curriculum is developed at the national level, policy developed at the national level, the goals developed nationally, but schools also have some flexibility in the implementation and domestication of whatever that's developed at the national level. And if need be, they even make use of local resources in the teaching and the learning, especially in the sciences and all that is to do with that. In terms of governance also, it's localized. But also, we are highly decentralized. Our education system is decentralized. We have 8 regions. At the regional level, we have a regional layer of education administrators. We have the school inspectorate, quality assurance and standards are also decentralized. At the county level, for 7 of them, we have county directors of education with, staff at that level. And we have close to 398, sub-county offices. But our lowest level of education administration unit is what we are calling the education zone. An education zone is made up of around 20 primary schools, and a number of secondary schools. So at that level, policies, goals are interpreted at that level. But all I just want to say is that every citizen sees himself or herself within those goals. Every Monday, all over the country, for example, the goal number 1 in the education sector in Kenya, education is to achieve, the purpose of education is to achieve national unity, patriotism, integration, and that kind of thing. That's why in every morning during the school assembly, whether you are somewhere close to the border with Uganda, South Sudan, Ethiopia, we raise the flag and we sing our national anthem. Education for us as Kenya is a unifying factor. And that's why around our neighborhood, other countries could be having challenges, but we have coexisted as a community, despite the fact that we are made up of 42 ethnic groups. And so we feel in the education sector we have contributed to that unity. Thank you.
Dr. Alias, I think the important role that education plays in underwriting pluralism cannot be understated, and I thank you for raising those remarks. Francis, Arua, Yumbe, Soroti, Gulu, Masaka, where my father is from, Kononi, Uganda, equally diverse, compounded by one of the youngest populations on the planet, I reiterate. Similar question, how do we balance national goals with local realities, local flexibilities? How does that play out in Uganda?
Thank you. I'd first like to note that I think one of the biggest challenges is every school is unique. And there's no one-size-fit policy that can be able to meet or mitigate the challenges of the schools, because every day you have emerging issues.
Okay.
And if you had to develop policies, you could even do them monthly. So what happens is, and then policies are not really very flexible as such, because as government, you know, of course you do your consultations, you go through the processes, and you pick out issues that have come out more. And sometimes the minorities are really not taken care of. So that therefore poses a challenge where our population or our clients, and which specifically are the parents, will always have diverse understanding and appreciation. And they sometimes think we are not meeting their needs because their needs are different, and every school is unique. And then, of course, given the inadequate resources, because policy implementation requires a lot of resources to do it. And so sometimes you have good policies, and then when it comes to implementation, it really remains a big challenge. But also the issue around sharing a common vision. It's also difficult to rally people around that. Just as you mentioned, in a country where you have diversity of different ethnic groups, diversity of cultural norms, where you have people with different learning abilities and all that, so you find that rallying all of them to a common vision becomes a bit problematic. And then also, you find that we have issues around priorities, really. What government priorities may not be the priorities of our community. Just giving an example, the priority of the community is how much money do I have in my pocket? And so when we tell them that we require you also to make a contribution, and they will tell you, now for us, one of the challenges, the children belong to government because you have universal primary education. So our money is our money. So that now becomes a big, big issue. Now, how do we balance these? Now, it is normally important to unpack the policies by coming up with different guidelines, which are specific to certain needs of certain communities. So you have the bigger policy, and then you start unpacking them to different standards, to different guidelines, and also looking at sometimes affirmative action in the most disadvantaged communities. I can give you in areas where we have cattle rustling and there are issues around security. Although our policy is that schools are day schools to improve access, you'll have to have a specific guideline to bring them on board to allow them to have boarding, including islands where children may have to commute using canoes, and that is quite risky. So you really have to try and unpack some of these policies, and then also coming up with targeted interventions to meet the needs of the different actors within education. You have interventions around special needs education. So you have to be very specific and intentional on how do you handle children with special needs abilities. But you realize within that category, there are also so many that even if you tried, you may not meet the needs of every child around that. So we've tried to ensure that we anchor that even into assessment, give them more time, maybe additional 30 minutes compared to the others, have the teachers who are interpreters and all that, really to try and facilitate learning at that level. And then the other one is really creating awareness and elicit a shared vision. Of course, not much is done around that because of funding. But one way is really to make people believe and accept. When we started the lower secondary curriculum, there was a lot of negativity for the teachers, from the parents. They're used to seeing their children having positions. My child is position number 1, got maybe 80%, and here you are reporting on competencies. So they're calling us very confused kind of group. These education people here are confused, they are bringing things. So it takes time for you to create awareness. Now, with the time, they are appreciated because there are things that they saw their children doing which they never used to do before when they came back home. Now they started creating pressure when it came to A-level. What is the ministry doing? Our children are learning a very good curriculum. What about now A-level? Are they going back to the other curriculum? So even if we're not yet ready, we had to come up with an alignment because now we needed to meet the pressure which was coming from the parents. So that is really the power of bringing them on board, creating more awareness, and of course stakeholder involvement is very, very critical at all levels. The more you involve the different stakeholders, the more they own the different policies that we have. So I think those are some of the areas that we think we can focus on to try and balance. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis. I think a number of
just points to highlight. I think you know, Uganda's strength is indeed its diversity, as I'm picking up from you and experience on the ground as well, and certainly harnessed similar to the Kenya experience by the role that education plays. I think very interesting to hear the practical realities of developing guidelines. How do we get students to Manyonyo Island, for instance? You know, these are practical challenges that I think these guidelines provide that flexibility, and certainly I think we can all empathize, as we have a lot of teachers in the room and educators, that engaged parents demanding the best for their children is both
certainly a benefit, but if we don't have the right answers, kind of an uncomfortable conversation, I'm sure. Jeremy, you sit overseeing, in effect, I believe at least 21 different countries as part of the SARO remit. Teachers, schools, communities, how do we get them to come together to engage on the development of education policies? What have you been seeing in that rather wide geographic remit that stands out to you as some examples that ought to be celebrated here?
Thank you very much, and thanks. It's a pleasure to be on the panel today with Dr. Elias and Dr. Francis, and thanks for the invitation. We really appreciate the commitment of the Aga Khan Foundation to education and, of course, to hosting this today. I mean, I think my colleagues from Uganda and Kenya have sort of exemplified the importance of the stakeholder consultation. And your question is, I think, specifically then taking it to the one step further around parents and members of the community. And so this year we actually published a study that shows very clearly that if you consult, if you decentralize, automatically, so decentralized by law, automatically some of these consultative components then get built in. So that's definitely, and I was very pleased to hear from Dr. Elias that it's by law, public consultation by law. That already triggers a whole series of consultations and gives the latitude to be creative in so doing. I mean, around this region, well, actually, just prior to here, I was in Egypt, where there was a massive education reform. And is there anyone from Egypt in the room here? No. So they missed the community consultation piece at the beginning. But, as you were just saying, parents are such important stakeholders, and parents are, how can I say, they're activists on their children's behalf as well. They should be. Education is a right of every child, and you want the best for your child. So parents, through the sort of Facebook, which is a big platform in Egypt for consultation and feedback, let's say, made their feelings clear, and then there was a course correction, and the Ministry of Education introduced a national consultation process with parents, which it's not always possible to take on what you gain from the consultations, but you certainly learn and you can take on some elements of it. Also, I mean, elsewhere in Africa, I think an example that I'd like to highlight is Zambia, where recently they passed a universal education bill, a free education bill, but it was done in consultation with parents and with teachers. And as a result, the way that it was then billed and passed and then implemented and rolled out, we have near universal education in Zambia. And that's it's considered to be a direct, the success is directly attributable to the consultation. I think there's also, you know, apart from the sort of the big policy consultations, there's also policy reform. In Ethiopia, for example, the federal government stipulated that the regional governments had to consult regionally and at district level. And then you get basically a much more empowered process of reform, which yields better results. In Madagascar, teaching at the right level is the big success there, and that came directly from consulting with parents and teachers, and involving teachers even in the rollout of teaching the right level, in that you know parents are brought on board to play a role in monitoring of some of the localized decisions that are made around remedial lessons for children who might need additional assistance, or for foundational learning, or for catch-up class. You know, the legal level, as you pointed out, and the policy level, and then at the local level, and you have that iterative process going back and forth, talking at the local level, and you have that iterative process going back and forth, talking to each stage, then you get the best results for children.
Jeremy, thank you. I think you've given us a bit of a very rapid tour of some of the things that you're seeing across the region. I think vertical integration, very important. The role that social media plays, I think us in Kenya can certainly empathize with that. Dr. Elias, I believe we have some Kenyans on Twitter, so to speak, and very active parents at times. And want to pick up your point and bring in Dr. Himes. And want to pick up your point and bring in Dr. Elias here around the Teachers Innovations Group.
Supports what takes place in the classroom. And so for schools 2030, there's a lot of focus on the classroom. Because when you focus on the teacher, it's just about the classroom. What is taught, how the teacher is teaching, the methods that are used. And so any intervention or any movement, any forum that prioritizes the teacher, prioritizes learning, which ultimately is what an entire education system is geared towards. Learning outcome, is very critical. So the approach by Schools 2030 is, I would say very effective here in Kenya. And you saw it for yourself. There was the teacher from Ronangala this morning trying to, explain how these interventions have helped them, the HCD, the human-centered, design or approach. It's really very critical. So we are supportive of the fact that at least 100 schools have been targeted in the coastal towns of Mombasa and Lamu, and the teachers there have been supported. So I think these ideas now, as a ministry, we've been thinking together with the Aga Khan Development Network to see how we can even scale up if need be, especially at the pre-service teacher training level. We want to take it on board and ensure that these new concepts are embedded within our curriculum for sustainability purpose, so that we're able to implement both at the in-service and the pre-service level. So we, of course, have a long history with Aga Khan Foundation, the preschool program that has now come of age, many years intervention, especially again in the coastal towns of coastal counties of Kenya. Then now looking at the Schools 2030, both at preschool, primary, and also in secondary education. So I would say we have worked very closely And so the question is now how to entrench it in the whole country, to scale it up, and also to take it to the 35 teacher training colleges in the country and adopt the methodology that comes with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Elias, and I think the partnerships around the teacher training colleges is certainly ones that I and my colleagues are very eager to build on our experience from Shanzu College in addition to many other areas. And I believe a lot of our colleagues from the Madrasa Early Childhood Program are here, and I can see that they are smiling ear to ear with both your references and Francis's references. Francis, I believe you have attended a national teacher showcase recently as part of the Schools 2030 program. What stood out to you in that experience, and why did you get excited about it?
Where do I start from? Everything was exciting. I was privileged to be representing the minister, so that day I was a Minister of Education. I was delegated, and one thing that stood out was the stakeholders' involvement beyond the school. I saw the political leaders in the districts where there's intervention all came. I saw the chief administrative officers who are the technical heads, because we also have the decentralized education. They were invited and they were all there. I saw schools, representative of learners and teachers and administrators. So that to me showed a very strong collaboration between Aga Khan schools, where the interventions are, with the leadership around those areas. So to me, that really stood out. And secondly, I saw the different innovations and how children and their teachers can think through and come with problem-solving approaches to teaching and learning, and how they appreciate inclusion. For example, a teacher who came up with what we call, I think, called possibilities, where they used the local materials, the straws, to come up with a board to be able to plot mathematical concepts around graphs, because that was a bigger problem. So it became like a game, but to me what stood out from that even the children, the blind, were able to learn using that board. So to me that was really powerful, because it brought on the issue of inclusion to learners with disabilities. The issues around environment and interventions around schools. What also stood out for me was another secondary school where they sat down, because one of the problems that they were facing was a lot of malaria, and then they also had a lot of influenza or flu around the boys' dormitories. So they wanted to inquire what is the problem. And so they found out that the boys, because they had bare ground, and they're always playing football around their dormitories, there was a lot of dust. And so they agreed and talked to the administrators that we need to plant grass and trees around this area. And then for the girls, they were bathing from out, so water would collect, and it was a breeding place for mosquitoes and all that. And then, of course, what they were calling the mobile mob something. And that one was really about improving the cleanliness of their schools by using bottles to come up with different dustbins and put in specific areas. And many others, but you could see that the children were very confident. The teachers left the children to demonstrate, to explain, and to me, that also stood out because you could see there was a lot of transfer of knowledge and empowering the learners to be able to speak for themselves. But also what I think comes out powerfully that when teachers are given opportunities to innovate, and once you give them that environment, they do wonderful things. And to me, I think if we really focus on giving our teachers much more of that leverage, I think they will be more visionary in the way they would like to tackle the problems, but also bring the realities to the schools, and also making schools interesting as learning spaces, and then transferring that knowledge back to the community. And if you allow me, I would like to introduce one of our teachers who accompanied here, the best school. Kindly stand up for. Yes, one of our secondary schools came up with an innovation, and we had a panel of judges who looked at every detail. But even those that didn't emerge as the best all did very well. But it also gave me of a thinking that I think there's a lot that we miss out when we do not give our children opportunity. And I think that's where we are scoring now in the new or in the lower secondary curriculum. Because the competence-based curriculum really is focusing on harnessing that. So the schools that were supported by Aga Khan, I think already spot on. And I've not had an opportunity to visit those schools myself, but I think I'll be interested in knowing whether they are better than others where we don't have direct intervention. And I was speaking to Richard that since we have a system which we use for monitoring teacher attendance, I want them to come to the directorate, and we particularly look at those schools. Has the attendance of those teachers improved compared to other schools? And I think that will give us whether we are creating impact or not creating impact. So I think around seeing whether we are sustaining, whether we are sharing the best practices are areas that we need to explore much more. But it was a very exciting experience.
Well, that was clearly one impressive showcase that you attended, if that were all the insights that you walked away with, Francis. Thank you for sharing those and really underscoring the role that design can play within the education environment and the role that teachers have to play in solving rather complex challenges as well. I'm very conscious of time. I see only a couple of questions on the app, so I'm assuming that the crowd is satisfied with how far we've gotten. I'm going to start moving into the last kind of sections of this. Francis, you've given us a tremendous amount of hope and optimism, but there are real challenges ahead of us. Jeremy, from where you sit, you know, the challenges facing education systems today are numerous. Climate change, climate-induced migration, digital learning gaps, refugee inclusion. I mean, it's a very long list. And certainly that list is probably quite extensive across your geographic remit. Very curious, there's a tremendous amount of energy around partnerships in this room. How do you see that being leveraged to navigate these challenges moving forward?
Yeah, thank you very much. And indeed, you know, we are close. We never get it perfect, but we're close to getting it right in an ideal world, right? But the world is not ideal, and we have these new challenges popping up all the time. Some of them have been actually a long time in being identified as real challenges, such as climate. But I think we now recognize that it presents an enormous challenge to education as it does to all other sectors and as it does to child rights more broadly. So UNICEF developed a Child Rights Climate Index 2 or 3 years ago so that we can sort of measure the vulnerability of children. And in Africa, almost every country is either high risk or very high risk. And that means risk of either drought or floods or cyclone or heat waves. I think that kind of covers that. And in 2024, 14 countries in this region of East and Southern Africa experienced some sort of climate hazard which disrupted children's education. So it is a real challenge. And then, of course, there is the sort of, there's the mitigation, the adaptation side of the climate change challenges. So I think there's probably 3 things we can do on the partnerships in terms of leveraging the partnerships that this forum and others create. I mean, and one, of course, is the sharing of experiences and good practice. And we have plenty of good practice to share and learn from, both for mitigation and adaptation. The other is jointly raising funds. I mean, it's not about UNICEF programs, it's raising funds for government, or leveraging funds into the right ministries in government so that we can spend it on mitigating and adapting the challenges of climate. And then I think there is some policy reform that is required around climate. I mean, just a very minor example, but it could have major impact. But if we're not accounting for increased temperatures or higher likelihood of flooding or cyclones in the building designs of our schools, it's a missed opportunity to prevent some of the impact of climate. I think another big one that you just touched on is obviously around digital, and the digital divide is a growing concern for us. We estimate that in 2030, 230 million jobs will require digital skills, and right now, if children are graduating from the average school in an average country in the region with some digital skills, it's because they've learned them on their own, right? And there's a lot of work to be done there. UNICEF is very engaged through partnership platforms such as Generation Unlimited, and there's others, YOMA, to sort of chart out a path from learning to earning. I'm sure you all know the phrase, but I mean, that needs to start, or at least it needs to be rooted in the education system. Of course, a lot of that learning can be done outside the formal education system, but if we need to recognize and build it into from primary onwards. I mean, we haven't talked just in this panel much about AI and digital innovation, but it's all around us and it's happening. And I think that many countries are switched on to that and harnessing it. But it does require thinking and learning together, because this is new territory for us. And we need to, some countries have moved faster than others. And I think we need to kind of harness the knowledge that they bring to us and use it to learn across the board. And on refugee inclusion, I mean, I really do admire certain countries that have been so open to receiving refugees and granting as many rights as is possible, if you like, to people who are claiming refugee status or who are refugees. It continues to be a concern with massive numbers of children on the move around the continent. Some of them just around the continent, some of them trying to make their way out of the continent. We can't afford for those big numbers, hundreds of thousands, millions of children, to lose out on education on the way. And I think that also requires us, I mean, some of that's caused